also part of the previous session on the MROs. So for you it's a repeated thing that we're going to have, but it is good. Fertilization of ideas, cross-fertilization of ideas is always welcome. To set the context, actually, we all look at India as a booming economy with an aspirational middle class, higher income, and low penetration of aviation and use of airlines at this point of time. It is going to expand at a much higher level, speaking specifically of the aviation sector. The technological capability is also there in the country. So I would like to believe that we should have been at the forefront of the aircraft component manufacturing also. But unfortunately, or maybe it's a phenomena of growth and transformation might take time. But at this point of time, even though we are bound for 5% of the global fleet deliveries of the world, our aircraft manufacturing is just 2%. So there is a gap that needs to be bridged just to match up to the aircraft delivery and also to realize our potential. If you look at that, probably the percentage might be higher. But it is not that the picture is all gloomy. In the last 10 years, we have made a lot of progress from manufacturing basic components, then to moving to major structural assemblies, including fuselages, wings, control surfaces, and air intakes. Earlier, we were only doing simple machine parts. Now we are doing LRUs and fully integrated systems. There is one bit of information that we keep sharing in all public forum, including the parliament, is that there are 230 suppliers that are supplying almost 2.65 billion worth of exports, and all of them are in the MSME sector. So that is the strength that we need to build upon and increase our presence in the component manufacturing. We also have ambitions about manufacturing a regional transport aircraft. We are open to both. We've been contemplating on a clean sheet design. We are also looking towards a partnership with the global OEM. In fact, day before yesterday, an MOU was signed between Adani and Embraer to manufacture the aircraft in India, which is a major milestone in the country. But that doesn't mean that we are going to abandon the clean sheet design. We will take both the approaches, and both the approaches will have a bearing on aircraft component manufacturing. And I'm sure the future is going to be very, very bright. And this particular roundtable, in which we have players from various stakeholder groups in the aircraft manufacturing, component manufacturing, is the right forum to give us inputs, ideas, and way forward to unlock scale to ensure that safety and security of the aircraft is maintained, and the product that we have is of high quality and conforms to the global regulatory standards. So with that, I would hand over the microphone to Mr. Jodhbir Singh, who is going to conduct this session, and I'll be an avid listener as usual, and at the end maybe we'll have good inputs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sri, for setting the context. Very, very important context. So what I request is for the participants that we have a large number of participants, so we want to cover as much as possible in the time frame that we have. So the request would be that you can kindly keep the responses concise and precise, right? And to start off the discussion, we'll first take the context from OEMs, right? And let me start off the discussion by first reaching out to Emirates, right? So just from an Airbus perspective, how do you evaluate suppliers, right, when you are doing procurement? And in your experience, when you are procuring from India versus procuring from globally, what are the challenges that you see, or what are the differentiators that you see, which impacts the decision of an OEM to procure?
the first one, so just a quick introduction. My name is Andreas Schwab, and I lead the procurement team for Airbus in India and South Asia since the last 6 months. So I have the privilege of looking at India from fresh eyes, having been in procurement for Airbus in Europe for the last 10 years. So you said, what are the main challenges? For me, what I see in the last 6 months is that actually the challenges we face are somehow the result of the successes we have in India, because the manufacturing industry grew very, very quickly. Piyush already mentioned it. We moved very quickly from relatively simple detail parts to high precision manufactured detail parts to complex aerostructures, and then into the final assembly line. I think what we are realizing now is that within this ecosystem, there are a couple of few critical capabilities which are still missing, which are somehow to the detriment of the suppliers we have in India, versus the supplier that we have in Europe. You can speak about raw materials, you can speak about hardware. There are some very special niche, special processes where some of our suppliers still rely on houses in Europe, so you need to ship the part from India to Europe and back, which in itself impacts your lead time and the cost. I think that these are now the areas that we want to work on to develop new capabilities, which in itself will give birth to new suppliers in themselves. But not only that, I believe that it will very much help suppliers that are already existing, which are currently still relying to some extent in imports from Europe, US, or the rest of the world. So we will obviously continue to grow what we already have, but we will very much focus on these few niche critical capabilities to help that. Which brings me to the first part of your question, how do we qualify them? And this is, I think, probably also coming back to your comment, Piyush. The long lead time to develop and qualify suppliers is somehow the impact of probably this mismatch between manufacturing versus the global deliveries of aircraft. But what I've seen in the last 6 months is that the growth we have seen recently is somewhat accelerating, because once you have proven now that it works, everyone is coming into India, and all of our different divisions are currently starting to source from India, also the ones which have been a little bit reluctant in the beginning. It will be long lead time. Ultimately, you start with all the international qualifications, but then the beauty that we have developed here in Airbus India, that in my team, I have big qualifiers for all the special processes that you may need. So ultimately, with the team, we are somewhat self-reliant, and we can support our suppliers in the qualification.
Thank you so much, Sridhar. So, three key elements, raw materials, hardware, and processes is something which comes out for discussion. So if I may go to Ashwini from Boeing, right? And so Ashwini, you oversee around more than 325 plus suppliers, right? And there's almost like $1.25 billion of sourcing that you do from India. And globally also, many of the suppliers who have initially started as small suppliers and then scaled up over time with Boeing, right? So if you were to look at those suppliers, what are those characteristics which are consistently seen on those suppliers who are able to scale up along with the demands that you have for procurement?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. See, we, as you rightly said, we source almost $1.35 billion with 325 suppliers, and 99.9% of what we do is exports. So I know there's a lot of growth in India, particularly in the defense sector, but again, just like Airbus, there's a lot of exports happening there. So first we need to understand that we are living in the world of global competition, and it's important to understand what OEMs are looking for. Now, in the aerospace and defense, in the world where we have huge demand, the backlog of aircraft is in thousands between us and Airbus. There is no dearth of opportunities here. So what matters is the continuity of supply and performance. So we've got great experience working with suppliers, and that explains why we have 325 suppliers and $1.35 billion at the scale at which we are operating now, which means when the rates go up, will be much higher than the sourcing volume here. But I was speaking at a forum last week in Delhi, and I said the supply chain has gone through a major transformation in the last 3 months. I've been in the Boeing supply chain for the last 10 years, and what I've seen in the last 3-4 multiple success stories, and I'll come to your question on what are the characteristics of those. But we've grown. One reason we've grown is, because if you perform well out of India, you don't have to sell yourself on cost or anything else, and performance takes care of a lot of growth. So what is happening is there is an imbalance in the demand and supply. The investments are happening in India, are happening in one particular space. Everybody is, for example, chasing machining. And the people, and I'm just giving an example, the people who are investing in machining do not realize that they can't sell machines if they don't have secondary processing to support them. So a lot of investments are not going to be as productive as we think they are. So that's one part of it. The second point is the visibility to sub-tier level. And we have to remember that in India, a lot of sub-tiers are signed. And some of them, I'm sure that's going to be the case for Airbus also, we're not aware of some sub-tiers, which is level 3 or level 4 of sub-tiers over here, who are delivering on the Boeing parts. So that visibility does not exist, which makes it very difficult. And the third thing is we don't have the full ecosystem. Again, same thing, as you heard from Anders, we don't have the whole ecosystem to do special processes. And what is alarming today is the attrition level in the industry has gone up to 25 to 30%. And I'm talking of some of the good suppliers who work for us. So there is lack of skill. But to come to your question on what has worked well, we have great success stories out of India, and some of them are sitting in this room. So the key is we need to play, first the entrepreneur or the CEO of the company has to be an operations guy. We were telling people that gone are the days when you are the best salesperson in the world. If you're not focused on operations, it doesn't work for at least OEMs like us. So that's one part of it. So people who have performed well with us are very strong operations people. They think in advance, they think about a year ahead of what they need to do. They don't plan, they don't wait for customer orders to come, but they have a vision to invest in the right areas. And of course, I think the best point, the success rate, and we have had multiple suppliers, many suppliers here who are at the global stage. One common factor across all of them is performance. So those who have done well with us, number one, they have performed well. Two, they have invested in the right areas. Three, they have made technology as a differentiator, which is a little, it's something that people do not focus on. There's still a lot of robotics and other things happening here. But I think if we take care of all these three things, we have a very bright future in the global system.
Thank you so much. So while there are more points which are covered, but initially I think the points that we could take away is that one, there is a lot of concentration which is happening in some of the areas, but we need secondary ancillary systems to come in place as well. Then we need visibility over tier 3 suppliers, and then the overall ecosystem needs to come up, right? So picking up the first point, which is that everyone is chasing some areas, right? Ashish, if I can come to you. So if you want to look at the complex aviation ecosystem and the supply chain, and if you want to look at propulsion systems, right? What are the areas where the Indian MSMEs or Indian suppliers could potentially focus on, which could be the fastest route to generate value within India from a manufacturing perspective?
Better?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So thank you for the opportunity. As far as propulsion systems are concerned, and Ashwini and Andreas both touched upon, how have we grown in terms of machining, right? If there is one thing that our country really brings into the value chain of aerospace, that's machining. And that's been the case since the very beginning, thanks to the background that we had in the automotive segment, where we have been able to port those skills to aerospace, and machining is has been our stronghold. Thinking of propulsion systems, these are one of the most complex machine parts you can have in aerospace. From two angles. One is from the tolerancing angles, and second is the material properties of what the material that's been used in the propulsion system is probably the hardest in terms of their metallic properties. We have started our journey into getting into machining for propulsion systems, and certainly, the big barrier to that, as you know, is raw material. But our country has already started to put in many steps, in terms of producing raw materials, and I will take the name of two companies here, BTC and Mirani. Both are kind of at the forefront of making sure that they make propulsion grade raw material, and many more coming up. Bharat Forge being another one, and almost all of them are our suppliers. The MSMEs, both Ashwini and Andreas brought up special processes. Hard metal on the propulsion side need more special processes, and therefore investing in that is something that's going to be key. But fundamentally, the capital investments that are required to get into hard metal manufacturing it demands a greater level of investment. Now, our industry is also such that we generally tend to look at investments first, processes, audit, certifications first, then the orders. So putting an infrastructure first, although it does require an upfront capex investment, will not go waste. We do tend to realize that there are hardly any supply chains in the world that have actually invested in such hard metal machining and special processing. To that effect, for the MSMEs to come up, I would just like to highlight, let's say, 2 or 3 points besides the fact that they want to put infrastructure and skill in terms of hard metal machining. One is, and a lot of us have been talking about it, a PLI scheme is necessary for aerospace going forward. And I'm not just saying hard metal manufacturing for hard metal, but overall. It's time we move our discussion from the 1,200 or the 1,500 aircraft backlog we have and 200 aircraft modernization to making it a manufacturing hub. Because Sir rightly said that we have 5-10% of the backlogs today in terms of aircraft, but OEM source less than 1% of their spend from India today. So there's definitely a disparity, and there needs to be a way to close this. Industrial clusters, we certainly see one here, right here in Hyderabad, Alibadla village, one of the forefronts in aerospace clusters, and the KIADB another one. But a need for them to come up because the services and the manufacturing segments across these, present right there will help tremendously coordinate the logistical aspects. And the third is our market for MRO is going to cross $4 billion by 2051. And everybody's talking about big MROs, we want to do engine MRO, we want to do aircraft MRO, etc. Why not focus on component MRO? Because this is where, it is probably easier to start and gradual to ramp up, where eventually it might lead to, the higher MRO segments, etc. So these are the few points I have. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ashish, for a very important point. You get some capital, right? And he was into it, the right incentives to be in place for the system to work, then the industrial clusters, and then the different MROs. There are a lot of steps which are already being taken in terms of development of industrial clusters around defense per se, right? And one of the ways in which possibly the demand could be created in the synergies between commercial and defense development. So if I can come to AV Michael on this whole story around commercial and defense synergy, right? So, what is the steps that we can take to make the civilian as well as defense suppliers work as one, so that there are synergies which are created, the demand becomes much more predictable coming from the defense part, and there is a very seamless procurement which the OEMs can also do.
Thank you. I'm Michael Fernandez from Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin was kind of pioneers as far as aerospace manufacturing is concerned in India, where we were the first company to go to work with the private sector in India in 2010. We've had a very successful run. I think it's our partners have been extraordinary, and we are going from strength to strength. I won't take long. I won't say very much. Defense and civil aviation are almost as demanding as in terms of qualification and Q&A is concerned. So, other than the niche technologies that defense has, which is very different from what the commercial aircraft have, by and large, everything else like components, structures, etc., is the same. I have 2 points that I have to convey to the broader audience here. One is, if we have to increase component manufacturing in India, as we find it for Lockheed Martin, one is ease of doing business. I mean, we still get caught up in SCOMEC. We have issues with that. It takes very long to get clearances for that. That is where the government can come in and help us in ease of doing business in India. The other thing I did hear from somebody that skilling is lacking. I find that I don't know how to actually gauge that, since we pride ourselves of 1.5 million engineers every year coming out. I don't know whether it's just this the Atmanirbhar factor that is growing the aerospace ecosystem in India that is taking away this the skilled manpower. But I think that's another important part that the government needs to look at to ensure that there's adequate. As of now, skilling for us is being done by Tata Lockheed Martin themselves. Okay. As of now, I really don't know if ITIs turn out anybody specific for aerospace. We normally take the more generalist and then convert into aerospace. So I think all these points. So one is ease of doing business, SCOMEC, those kind of licensing issues. The second one is training, and the last one, which Ashish also mentioned, is aviation is by and large expensive. It's got long gestation periods. It's very risky. The government has to handhold people who want to jump into this and take a risk. Whether it's PLI, whether it's other ways of supporting people who want to get into this arena. I think they need to look at avenues to help more people in that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. So 3 key areas. One is of doing business. Second is skilling, and third is in terms of the support that is required for the business. So picking up on the skilling part, and if I can bring in Ashutosh over here. And when we look at the skill gap which is there within the industry, right? What is that we can do in terms of addressing this skill gap, in terms of ensuring that there is a ready and continuous supply of required number of individuals, and it is not just for one specific area but across all levels, right? And is there a specific collaboration which is required from an industry perspective and government perspective to ensure that skilling gap is met?
Thank you. Thanks for bringing this forum, which is very important. I'm also from Safran Aircraft Engines, and I would like to share a few experience, and maybe this is bringing some ideas. So we started 6 years back in India, first component manufacturing plant from Safran Aircraft Engines in Hyderabad. And what we choose, highly complex part. It's a rotating part in low pressure turbine section. And we speak about tolerance of 20 micron to 50 micron. And once we take a paper, the thickness of the paper is 35 micron. And we are speaking about 800 mm diameter. So we started recruiting people and we put them for the skill development in our French factories. We put experts from France to come here to do the training. And during the recruitment screening, we have visited several institutes across the country. And truly we did not find a very right level of the educational system which can provide the skilled manpower. Maybe not ready to work, but at least ready to understand. So from the diploma level, in fact, which is a foundation for the industry, we should focus to strengthen towards the aerospace, because aerospace is not only technical, it's mindset as well, respecting to the quality concerns. Engineering level, which is kind of carried to the industry practice, we should focus, and aerospace, aeronautical divisions must be created in several engineering institutes, and it should be supported. For the IITs as well, and we are exploring opportunities. We are connecting with the IITs, we are sponsoring them to come and do the research with us. But IITs to develop some innovation product, how it can be easy in the manufacturing. So one side is the educational system reforming. Second side is industry itself to take the ownership and developing the skill. I keep visiting a couple of suppliers in India, and I have seen many aerospace suppliers. Before the start of their industry, they are first setting up center for the developing people. And we met a couple of us very recently one land. It was very impressive, and this is what we did when we started. And next angle is a government initiative, which is really very important. How government can contribute. I'm working for a French company more than 15 years, and I know how the process over there. After phase of engineering, government is giving sponsorship for the students to go to the industry and working over there. And this is not a burden for the industry, this is always managed by the state government, French states. So we are bringing people from France here for 2 years, 1 year, and this is managed by them, and they are doing fantastic job. They are learning and they are ready for the industry. So somewhere we need to focus at all three angles: institutional system, government angle, and industrial angle as well, sharing the responsibility.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh, for a very important perspective of how we address this same part. So majorly we've spoken about the global Koreans coming in, but we do have Mr. Mike from HAL, very interesting to come in over here. And given the scale of HAL in terms of aircraft manufacturing and also large new programs which are coming in, right? So what are those practical steps which the Indian manufacturers and MSMEs can take to align with the requirements of HAL, right? And what are the key challenges that we see in terms of getting a wider supplier base for your future products?
Am I audible, sir? Thank you very much. I represent Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. I am General Manager at HAL Production. As rightly put by yourself, sir, HAL is right now at the cusp of having multiple projects, and there is a large potential and opportunity for the Indian ecosystem, for the Indian MSMEs and startups to get collaborated with HAL. We have got right now the futuristic projects in addition to the MRO what we do. We have got the futuristic projects like we have got the major SC83 program is under production. The SC97 program is under production. In addition to this, the development efforts are in full swing for the SC Mark II program. The first prototype is supposed to roll out by the next year. And after that, there is the MCOP program. Various stakeholders are on the job. And in addition to the fighter aircraft program, we have got the programs just like we have got in this expo also. We have got tasked with coalition for SG100 as a transport, we can transport aircraft that are used for the Indian industries. So that also POP project will be taken by the HAL for the production and delivery of these aircrafts. And we at HAL have got one focus attention that we don't need to do all the things ourselves. We are focusing on to be the lead integrators. Lead integrators in the sense that we can integrate all the systems, all the LRUs into the aircraft. And the rest of the things, the systems, the aircraft components manufacturing and the machining of the components will be taken care by the Indian ecosystem, the defense ecosystem, the manufacturers of the MSME ecosystem and the startups. In that, you might have come across with the knowledge of that, the major modules like the central fuselage or the rear fuselage or the wings. We are not now going to develop assemble on our own. We have developed the better base in Bangalore, in Coimbatore, in Hyderabad, around the NCR regions also, so that they can work as an extended work center, not as a vendor. We at HAL have a philosophy that our vendors are our own hands. They are the extended work centers, so we have to take them on board. We have to handhold them. We have to be a catalyst between them and the regulating agencies. Ensure their ease of doing business, ensure their registration along with the various stakeholders like RCMA, like RDA, EGCA. We take initiatives to get them registered on them. We do take care of that special process right what we talked of. For a private vendor or an SME, it is a very financially intensive to go for the special processes setup. But we at HAL have our special processes inbuilt in our various divisions. And I am very happy to know that we have got NADCAP certified special processes at HAL. Even in Lucknow, we have got 14 processes, special processes, which are NADCAP certified. So these special processes at various divisions of HAL, not only we do the portion of HAL work in these special processes, it is open to the private entities also. They can make use of these special processes what we have got in our divisions, our private entities, our MSME vendors. We do offer these facilities, these capabilities, so that they can make use of these. Manufacturing portion they can do, but special process education, we can handle them. And with regard to the LRUs, even if we take off, we talk of only actually Lucknow division, we do Manmara and manufacturing of 1400 unique LRUs. Now the thing is, we want that all the low level, low technology areas in these LRUs, we want to give it to the MSME startups, so that the high-end complex technologies where they cannot reach, where they need some gestation period of maybe 4 years, 5 years, they can go with that, so that we can be lead indicators of the aircrafts and manufacturing, complete manufacturing can be taken care by the MSME vendors and the private entities. We have got a cluster more than 300 positive active vendors all over Bangalore, Hyderabad, Coimbatore, NCR regions, Nasik region, we are working with Odisha, we are working with Nisha, Rima at Nasik. And our intention is that both entities, the MSME vendors, the private entities and the HAL go in a collaborative mode of having a win-win situation at the end of the day. We go, they go, and the nation goes at a length. In addition to this, I would like to put one more question that skill gap, my friends observe that we have a skill gap. HAL on its part is doing that portion activity as a being one of the major cases defense cases. Every year, sir, we take apprentice trainings from various institutions, IITs, even from ITI trainees, diploma trainees, and BTech trainees. We provide them 1 year full apprentice training at our various 20 design division, production divisions, and the 10 design centers. After 1 year of technical know-how and training, they are subject to their evaluation and test, and after that, out of this lot, it is fully available for the industry, for the private industry, for the government industry, and we all at HR also take them in our training response of the employees. So there is a full gamut of these technicians whom we provide the on-the-job training. Yes, there might be gaps, but we actually provide that, sir. And there is full understanding that hand in hand the private entity and the government entities have to collaborate with each other. All manufacturing activities are to be outsourced. Even outsourcing, we do one more thing, sir. We have got the infrastructure. We call the vendors to go for the insourcing also. Whether I have got an NC shop. Right now, because of the employee gap, so why I don't need to run the machine shop or MC manufacturing shop myself. I outsource it to private entities who have got the skill, who have got the capability and the competence. They come to our hangars and manage the manufacturing shops. So that is now what is going on in HL. And from HL side, I provide my humble submission that we are open to walk a mile, provided that private entities, the startups, the MSMEs walk miles. We are here to handle them, we are here to collaborate with them and work as a catalyst for them, along with the DGC, along with the DGQ, along with the RCB. That is how we breathe. In addition to the normal manufacturing, we have taken focused and systematic approach to indigenization. Gone are the days whenever we were dependent on the OEMs because of political and geopolitical crisis going on. There have been supply chain issues from the OEMs, from Russia, from Ukraine, from US. So now focused and sustained efforts have been put in at various regions at the corporate level in HAL that we have to indigenize all the spheres what are going there. So these spheres also we focus, we integrate these MSME startups so that they can collaborate with us. We provide the technical support and they can provide the necessary infrastructure for indigenization of these spheres and the components. Thank you very much.
For a very detailed and insightful approach of how HAL is trying to build the ecosystem, there being the lead integrator and being a net certified entity, and also enabling the use of shops and processes for SMEs to come in, right? This is a very important point around the certification and quality, which is core to aircraft component manufacturing. And if I can go to Vishwaji for this perspective, and so what is that MSMEs can do to ensure that they are able to deliver as per the quality and the specifications which are very crucial from aircraft component manufacturing?
Thank you for the opportunity, and let me start with congratulating the government on enabling the policy framework which is creating an attractive environment for investment in aerospace and ecosystem. We at GE Aerospace Facility are making the components, complex high precision components for all our global engineering programs like G90, GMX, LEAP, and so on. Now, taking this, we have announced investments of around $44 million in the last 2 years, which itself is a reflection that, while doing so, as now coming to your question, we are able to maintain a stringent quality standards. We are able to develop our integrated supply chain. We are working with more than 300 suppliers, and out of that, many of them have turned out to be a global supplier, which is also contributing to the capability and growth and skill development in India. We have focused on skill development. We have our in-house welding school, where we have trained more than 5,000, apprentices who have served us, and then they are serving the industry today, which is contributing to the skill development. All these investments are focused on increasing our footprint in India, bringing new technologies, new processes. While we do that, we are giving a lot of emphasis on building a right culture. Because when we talk about certifications or quality standards, which may be, like going through a structured process of audits, the more important at the back end is how we get the right behaviors and the mindset, starting from leadership to the shop floor, what we call Lean. And in doing so, there are a lot of day-to-day activities. And for GE, we use a proprietary lean model, we call it a flight deck, which is a set of behaviors and tools. But we want to extend this to entire supply chain because one entity alone cannot bring the game. It has to be the whole supply chain we should go out. So 3 areas I would summarize. One is a lot of focus on the behaviors, cultures in the company, which can sustain the skills we have and deliver to the stringent quality department while we go for all the quality certification. Second, extending all build their level up to the global level. And then, bring new technologies, which also includes getting some of the, industry 4.0 solutions and, AI-related solutions, so that we become more efficient in our performance of SQDC as we call it, safety quality. So that is what I would like to discuss.
Thank you so much, Richard, for those very helpful comments. And if I can move to the Indian manufacturers now, and first bring in Ajay from Dynamics. And Ajay, there's a lot of growth which we have seen in terms of Dynamics. And if you were to talk about three key moves or areas which has powered that growth, and what is the critical challenge that we're facing at this point of time, which is potentially limiting further growth?
Excuse me.
You would say Dynamatic has been a pioneer in the aviation industry. It's been a kind of DRDO and chair building. Our success, I would say, would be purely very focused on the sector to build high quality. And this sector requires highly skilled and high repeatability, which is what we focus on. One of the key elements which everybody is talking about is on the skill. As part of our initiative, we've taken over ITI and developed aerospace specific skills. This is something very unique for us, and we've been going with all India with the group. The challenges, because a lot of points have been put in, I don't want to focus on the challenges. This sector grows only with ecosystem. We have to build a very strong ecosystem, which includes Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. The challenges today, I would like to concise again, sir, is India is the largest exporter of bauxite, but we don't have a mill today which is certified for aerospace grade. And why this is not as purely a capital requirement. The government has to allocate funds which is long term, not 5 years, not 7 years. Aircrafts, we are the largest selling aircrafts, are designed in 80 and are still designed in life of 25 years. We need a fund for all the mills in India, which is long term, so that we can invest and get our aluminum requirement, which is 85% of the aircraft requirement in India. That is going to be a game changer, which will enable a lot of the OEMs to buy more parts from India. So capital cost is a key element. Raw material certification is a very key element. Then when we want to mature from a build to print to a build to spec, a testing facility is a very key element. Government has a lot of IITs and institutions developed. We need a little more focused effort again in that segment to set up labs, testing labs, specifically to make airport products. So those are the two things. Coming into collaboration with MSMEs, policy matters is important. A sudden implementation of BIS requirement to all material imported was a very big industry here. All suppliers were really challenged. Even today, we have some challenges. You cannot expect companies in Europe or US who are selling thousands of tons of raw material every month to have their material BIS certified for India, which buys less than 10-20 tons per month. So Now, when they buy a raw material and under a UU scheme and supply to us, which was considered as deemed export, now that is removed and it's made taxable. That means they have to pay the customs duty, which becomes a very big cost burden and totally non-competitive. So, do you think this is a critical area if we need to grow MSMEs? If they have to pay the cost, not everybody can sell to OEMs. We have to have very large MSME which sells into tier ones and then exports out of the country. The export benefit of custom duty has to be brought back, has been taken away suddenly, which requires rethinking for this sector. And the last point I want to make is on while PLI is again talked about, we already had an export incentive scheme in the past. That had to be shared because of a certain issue with the WTO. RoDTEP was brought in, but we need something to really support export industries, industry which is exporting. So our humble request is to look at how either a PLI or an export incentive scheme is brought back. And one of the major success even today in China is because of export incentive. Why the country or why it's become the largest manufacturer in the world is because the government exports and incentive is taken. That's my request. Thank you.
Very important points. One is on the aerospace related raw materials, right? And how do we actually develop that industry within the country, what kind of support is required. Then the point that you raised around the trade exports and then incentives which are required to build this whole ecosystem. Now, if you were to talk about the first point, which is aerospace grade raw materials, right? And if you can continue to shape that. So, as a composite supplier to OEMs, right, which has a large proportion of metallic and composite raw materials which are imported, right? So, how do you facilitate the development of this aerospace grade raw materials within the country? What are the steps that need to be undertaken, and what are the kind of challenges that you see in terms of the procurement of this raw materials?
Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. My name is Shekhar Ranjit. I represent Cadico Composite Aerospace Manufacturer. Raw materials, we have a little bit different perspective because we handle composites and composite supply chain materials. Out-cycle and in terms of the challenges that we are facing today, non-availability of composite raw materials in the country, I think in terms of actually getting these raw materials made in India from a carbon fiber perspective to a free-trade perspective, it's a long haul for us, at least to get these materials certified. So in the near term, in the mid term, what we really need to do is to have at least facilitate free-trade manufacturing in India so that, to be fair to everybody, the investments that are required, we really need incentives for the government. In terms of actual carbon fiber manufacturing, it's a further long-term cycle in terms of certification. And I believe that just the production link incentive scheme is not enough. Because if you look at any other sector where you have implemented PLI, the life cycle between investments and revenue is very short. But in the case of carbon fiber, for instance, the life cycle between investment and revenue is going to be very long, because in between that would be the certification requirement. So after somebody successfully produces the carbon fiber, he needs another 3 to 4 years to be able to commercially sell it to the aerospace. That's the time for viability and funding is essential. A pure vanilla PLI scheme will not work for the sector. This is my opinion. In terms of the challenges that our sector is facing beyond raw materials, I would say that the biggest challenge that we are facing is in terms of tooling. Composite manufacturing requires a very high investment in layout tools and fixtures, and most of these are coming from OEM today are second-hand tools, because either they are moving from another destination, and today we see a lot of factories moving from China, with the supply chain getting re-engineered into India, and these equipment, these tools which are millions of dollars and pay a customer duty, which is not refundable. These were removed from the EPCG scheme many years back to facilitate local machine tool industry, but today it's hurting aerospace industry, because if you are talking of, let's say, a $20 million package being brought into India, and there you have $10 million worth of tool on which you have to pay duty, which is not refundable. It becomes a non-starter in terms of a business case. So I think this has been represented many times, needs a serious look. In terms of the future of resilience, I think as supply chains are getting re-engineered, new aircrafts in terms of single aisle are on the drawing board. Obviously, the supply chain consolidation will start happening, and composites as the material of construction for the aircraft is going to take a very important leap forward, way forward in terms of its content on each aircraft. And I think in terms of what we're doing today is basically using our cost arbitrage. And cost arbitrage can be an entry point. It's not something that's going to allow us to stay agile in the future of the industry. So the way automation, AI, digital maturity is entering on the space, we're going to be outpriced in terms of cost pretty soon if we are not as efficient as the West. And for that, we have to do these investments in digital maturity, AI-driven automation, human robotics, as efficiently, as quickly as the West does. And to make this happen, I think the Indian capital cost structure will drag us. So obviously, government has to take in a mission mode in collaboration with Aerospace Association of India and come out with a mission in which where the industries with the help of government is able to keep pace with modernization, digital maturity, robotic automation at the same pace that the West is doing. Only then will create a resilient supply chain, a long-term supply chain, a supply chain that is integrated in the global scheme of things.
Thank you so much, Shikhar. Very valuable and interesting point, specifically covering that we need a very different kind of PLI scheme for the sector, given the long gestation period between manufacturing and certification. And then some of the issues around the tax and custom duties which need to be addressed. And third, and most importantly, is around the use of technology, Industry 4.0, and AI in terms of ensuring that our entities are also able to compete with the global peers, right? And so from that perspective, if I can move towards Anuj from JJJ, and so you have been expanding into various segments, including the engine segment, right? And from your perspective, what are the challenges or bottlenecks that you face in terms of moving towards larger contracts, right? And how do you have those partnerships or ways and means to de-risk getting into larger contracts?
Firstly, move from small contracts to large contracts is no shortcut. In this space, it's a long gestation business, as I usually mentioned. Start small and add capabilities. So for us, we are very strong in small machine components with in-house special processes. So even if you have the earlier band members spoke about the need for the integrated special processes. So for us, really the key offering has been that we keep on listening to our customers, what is the gap in India in terms of special process capabilities, try to have those done. So you can start with very simple special processes like electroplating and masking, do all the different coatings and paint and we're moving in that direction. In terms of machinery, to go from very, very simple pins and bushes to
strength in India lies in machining. So people who have a strong background and foundation machining for the automotive industry, those that quality foundation very strong.
Thank you so much, Anuj. A very important point of listening to your customers and scaling with them. If I can come to Girish now from Private Group, right? So you have spoken a lot about manufacturing and how we need to build up the manufacturing segment within India, right? And while there's a lot of focus into it, there's a lot of high-value design work which is still being undertaken overseas, right? And what are the steps which are required to bring that high-value design work into India, right? And is there a specific support which is required from the OEMs, industry, government in that respect?
Yeah, thank you so much for involving us in this forum. One of the key things along the lines of what you mentioned is what we want to emphasize on. We have been looking at, let's say, the value parity in terms of what is being sold in India, the components that are being manufactured or sourced from India. We would like to look at this parity gap in a totally different dimension. And in fact, we would want to encourage this in the context of elevating Indian suppliers, right, in the aerospace ecosystem. And the dimension should not be only value in terms of money. I will give you some numbers, which I am not sure how many of us in this room are aware of. US FAA has TSO authorizations issued for aircraft components of the order of 50,000 numbers. Indian DGCA has issued TSO authorizations for components of less than a dozen. I repeat, it is not one order of magnitude, it's not 10, 100,000, 10,000, 1 lakh. It's orders of magnitude different. And TSO authorization essentially means the design ownership of the components being authorized by the regulatory bodies, right, which will include the DGCA, EASA, and FAA. And some of you may not know us, so I'll just quickly introduce. So Tyletooth has become the first company in the country to get the TSO authorization from the Honorable DG at Wings India for aircraft seating systems. It's a large system. We are looking at other LRUs as well. Along the lines of what HAL said, I want to also now come to what can we do as an ecosystem to build capabilities for us to elevate or rise higher up in the value chain, rather than still talking about machining and plating. We do understand these are extremely critical, but why are we not still discussing more about rising up in the design value chain and owning TSO authorizations of aircraft components? And what we need to make this happen is that, for example, a DGCA adopted a TSO when we applied for the certification of the seats. We need the regulatory bodies to also work together. Essentially, in this case, HAL work with us, which is the aircraft OEM, work with us. We work with the DGCA to essentially indigenize this component or this important system. So similarly, DGCA and EASA need to have more stronger bilateral treaties. DGCA and FAA do have some bilateral treaties, but the access to FAA is extremely difficult. We are confident that our product will get certified in any global standard in the world, but we do not have access to FAA and EASA without the government supporting on indigenizing this know-how. Number one. Number two, I have a question for all the big OEMs, not a question but a discussion point, that when you say that you need an ecosystem which is more capable to deliver on more complex products, when we say we are skilling the technicians and the workshop, why wouldn't it be valuable like what HAL did with us as Tyletooth and DGCA did? Will Boeing and Airbus and Safran and GE open the doors for a TSO authorization from India to be correspondingly taken to the corresponding organizations in Europe or US? And if no, why not, right? And that's the kind of enabling system that we need to be a part of the global supply chain and to elevate on our value contributions in the aerospace industry. So that's the primary solution kind of I have in this. Of course, there are a lot of other points which we all commonly realize about raw materials and many others, but I want to just emphasize on this one point. Thank you.
If I may, the FAA is actually in the room right here, so right across from me. So yeah, my name is Casper Wang. I'm with the Federal Aviation Administration, aircraft certification, so responsible for the Asia Pacific region, based in Singapore. I'd like to talk a little bit about the regulatory challenges that some of you have mentioned. I want to give a lot of credit to the DGCA India. They've obviously had some changes in the past year, some challenges associated with it, and I feel like the DGCA has been dealing with the challenges with aplomb and grace, and frankly, I've never been more encouraged by the cooperation between the FAA and DGCA. That being said, we obviously recognize that there are always opportunities for improvement. So we continue to work with the DGCA to talk about the capabilities that India has. Earlier there was a question about just culture and the training that needs to take place. I implore India, one of the main strengths that this country has is the people. It is a massive country and it takes a lot of investment to make sure that there is a continuity of competent mechanics, manufacturers, designers, and so please continue to invest in your people. I've been very encouraged by some of the visits that I've had speaking with US OEMs, but with a presence in India, that they are very interested in continuing to do that. That being said, we cannot discount the importance of process, and that's, I think, where the FAA can really help share a lot of information with DGCA and other regulators and even OEMs who are looking to enter the market. India has a lot of emerging aircraft companies who are also very interested, who may not have as much aerospace experience, and the FAA is eager to engage, especially given the strong population in this region. So that's all I wanted to say for now. So the FAA is here. We're eager to help. Thanks.
So much. That's so encouraging to have one person. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Girish, for sharing those very important points, and thank you, Casper, for sharing your perspective as well, because I was just about to come to you, and thank you so much for answering it early itself. Now, moving to Dr. Diwakar, right? So, a lot has been spoken in terms of moving up the value chain and looking at from a design perspective. So, how do we encourage and support the Indian ecosystem to move up the value chain, right? And building these capabilities around design and other elements across
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Piyush for giving an opportunity on this in the forum as well. And I still remember 2 years ago, we had the first big meeting in Mocha on the aircraft, manufacturing. So that's when really a lot of these discussions started. In the last 2 years, there have been several meetings, which is quite encouraging as well, to do that. And we all know, as Piyush said, India still only forms part of 2% of the global supply chain on the aerospace, especially on the commercial side. And nearly, I think 95% of that is built, right? So the design and build is not there, that much. And I know that, as Casper was saying earlier, Dr. Manish Kumar, from DGCA has been very proactive, willing to support. But the fact is, the numbers, as Girish said, that's somewhere we need to work. But I know many good stories, and we have with us here, Wilson Weavers there, they got a certification on carpet, aircraft carpets, from DGCA as well. So like that, many things are happening, but we really need to work on institutional capacity building. So in terms of both, in terms of capacity as well as capability, on both sides. But there is a willingness, very positive willingness from DGCA on that particular one. We need to really work on that as well. But as we said, how do we move up the value chain in terms of design and build? Today, if we look at it, as in build to print, majority on the commercial side, design and build on the defense side. because obviously inside the country that needs to be done. And so IP creation, innovation, really pushing that on the design side is quite minuscule. If this is 2%, you can see that's 1% or 2%. That's how much design to spec we do on the commercial side. But OEMs, I've known that Airbus and Boeing are interested and started experimenting and really working with companies. That's one what I would say for Kinetic, that there are some OEMs who are really starting working on that. That is extremely important as well on the design certification. So we'll need to work. The question also for us is that should we just have DGCA for commercial, CENELAC for defense, and ISRO for space? Or should we have one like FAA and EASA to do that? We've been having some discussions on that. That's something we really need to look at to move forward. But the challenge is today, if the companies have to directly go to FAA or EASA for a $10,000 product, they may have to spend $500,000 to do the certification, several trips and discussions and money. That is not really encouraging. That's where I think we need to really work with the DGCA or the new body, whichever it is, to really have that bilateral with EASA and FAA. Now that we have done the EU FTA, hopefully this bilateral dialogue especially can happen, and hopefully with FAA as well on the similar lines, to do that. But quickly on 2 or 3 points, not well on it. Skilling, extremely important. Apart from blue collar, white collar is much more important. Even more important is actually the executives and founders and entrepreneurs. We'll need a mindset change here on skilling, to do that. It's just not the blue collars, on that. Raw materials, we really need to work on it as an asset, national asset. Aluminium, we have Indalco, if I can take a name. They have a subsidiary which produces aerospace grade aluminium in Europe and in China. All right? So it's not a question of capability, it's more a question of capacity in the country and how do we do that. Similarly, as what Shekhar said on the raw materials, there are some global OEMs like Excel's willing to come in and set up shop here. That's how we do that. We really need to work on that as on a mission mode to do that. Capital investment, already the 3 A guys, like Andreas, Ashwini, and Ashish were mentioning about that capital intensive industry. We really need that. And what we need, like in other parts of the world, we need common facility center. Okay? In India, we need that as 3 or 4 places, the northern corridor, southern corridor, Bangalore, Hyderabad, potentially. Really, this is where the testing capability we talked about, special processing, and maybe something more needs to be done. And I know that there is an MSME scheme which promotes that. This is something we need to work and push, on that. Last point, we know that there's going to be a lot of push towards Asian countries in terms of supply chain challenges. Airbus, Boeing, Safran, all the tier 1 suppliers are looking towards Asia, but also because of geopolitical reasons. Both US and Europe are investing in defense. And for defense, maybe the OEMs are different, but it's the same tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers. So they're going to be squeezed in there. So the commercial side will come towards Asia. But that doesn't mean that it's going to come to India alone. See, there's Turkey, there's Indonesia, there's Malaysia, there's Taiwan, Vietnam, all are talking about China plus one. They are China plus one, right? So we need to do, and the last point here I'm making is that we really need to have a national aerospace roadmap, which clearly articulates how we want to grow. But it is not enough to do that. And here, I'm not looking towards just the government. Here, industry needs to take lead as well. Industry, government, and academia have to do that so that we know exactly the direction, because that makes it easier for the OEMs and others as well to support us, to do that as well. So that's my humble submission. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Walter, for very, very comprehensive set of points. If I can just move quickly now, and I think we'll go to Kunal from Aerospace. And from the perspective of manufacturing and designing of subsystems, right? One is from a civil aviation perspective and from a defense perspective, right? What kind of incentives or partnerships are you looking at which can make this progress seamless?
Thank you for the opportunity and good afternoon, everybody. As Joseph said, we're running short of time, so I'm trying to keep this short. A lot of what I wanted to say has been covered by a lot of the other speakers, but specifically on what you asked about. I start with where Ashwini was talking about where a lot of the investment is chasing opportunity here is built around machining at this point. And naturally that is required as a foundation for our ecosystem. But we need to also look at moving up the value chain in terms of subsystems, systems, and LRUs, as Girish also mentioned. And this is something that a few companies like us have been doing on the defense side for nearly 30 years now. And I think it is time to look at how do we bridge that gap between defense and civil to bring those capabilities, those skill sets, to be able to contribute to the global supply chain, whether it's build to print or build to spec. And that is again where this question of certification between having CEMELAC, DGCA, bridging that gap of having multiple regulators for really qualifying the same types of equipment to the same ultimate end objective of safety and quality, to bring some harmonization there to again engender ease of doing business from that perspective. So that is my main submission on component manufacturing moving up the value chain, whether it is defense or civil, and the design side of it. The other side is also the MRO. So that is also one of the things that we, as a defense ecosystem, we've been doing a lot in India, including on the component MRO side for a long time. But the civil side, there are a lot of gaps, or there's a lot of opportunities the other way to look at it. Today we're at 800 aircraft as a whole, and we're looking to go to 2,000 just narrow body in the next few years. So that is also another area where I think with the appropriate national strategy, we can achieve a lot more domestic competence.
Thanks so much, Kunal. So moving very quickly and not more than a minute, Sanjay, if you can just talk about the ecosystem we're looking across MROs and how are these complementing the component manufacturing industry? Yeah.
Thank you, Jyoti. Okay, I'll quickly talk about this particular aspect. So MROs, I come from ISEL, AI Engineering Services Limited, and it has got presence in all four verticals of MRO business, like line maintenance, base maintenance, component maintenance, and engine shops. Talking specifically of the component maintenance, we do repairables, and while we do some work, but I can assure you that is far less than the expected. What is the expectation of the house? I mean, we should be rising to much higher levels as a country and as a company. Now, coming to that, MROs are actually most important bridge between the suppliers, or here in this case manufacturers, and the operators, airlines. And these MROs can support in several ways, small ways but very important, that demand aggregation, like I would like to put it that way, that same component coming may be used in different products or different customers. So the MROs can promote, stocking of those kind of materials and projecting the demands for that. Then supplier vetting, MROs, we do have our own ecosystem, quality system is in place, we have our processes in place, we have the things, by which we identify the suppliers, and we keep a ready list of the suppliers and qualify them for immediate supplies. So supplier, qualifying for us can be readily available to supply those parts to us. Then we can be also technical partners for supporting those suppliers or manufacturers by providing them the feedback in terms of failure rates of the components, or what is actually the failure happening to the particular component. So this is one knowledge transfer we can do, and then we can do the quality advocacy or prototyping, and that way support. So by not taking much of the time, but I do feel that MROs do play a very vital role and a bridge between the airline business and the component manufacturers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. If I may, to Dr. Ravi Shankar, just 30 seconds in terms of the work which is happening around R&D and what are the areas which would have the greatest impact on the Indian aerospace industry?
Yeah. So to quickly go over the summarized
what kind of work that you are doing, particularly in the R&D side, in the area of manufacturing. I would like to sort of put it in three possible points. One is on the technology adoption side, second I would say on the sustainability side, and third on the areas of quality control. Coming on the technology adoption side, two areas that we are trying to work right now is in the area of Industry 4.0 implementation across the manufacturing spectrum, and second one is on application of digital twins across various aircraft design programs that we are presently working on. And here we are trying to bring in the concept of model-based definitions into the system so that the manufacturability becomes much more easier and more accountable and much more foolproof. Along with that, sort of bringing up various learning methodologies of inspection and also seeing that the whole process of manufacturing is totally error-proof and false-proof. On the area of the sustainability side, we are working on the area of how to eliminate one of the trading that like the cadmium trading, which all of know is considered to zinc trading and also get the approval from SEBI. We are working very closely with the government agency in this regard, and we are very much there in getting that approved. And also working on other area that is on the business providing for both similar as well as dissimilar alloys to have a skills in their combination and sort of try to eliminate as much as possible the limiting processes that are coming into the aircraft structure. And on the quality control side, we are trying to bring in the AI, the team is working on AI, to see that how to bring in the various parameters that is there in, for any processes that we are doing in the aircraft development. There are multifarious parameters that have to be controlled, and there are multifarious standards that needs to be handled. And we are trying to bring in AI into it and see that how to have all the standards in one place and see that everything is a general question, the answers are being given so that we don't miss any point, because at the end of the day, it is very important that we have a end-to-end digital connectivity in whatever activity that we are doing, and also have a traceability which is never lost in it. So these are my two points that I would like to sense. But I'll just add one point on skilling, which has already been discussed quite a bit here. We at Aerospace Laboratories, we also have a aerospace skill development center, which we are working extensively with the AASC, that is Aerospace and Aviation Security Council. And we have, at every year, we have more than 200 boys and girls who are made employable, and they also get into employment at various organizations. But I would like to say that most of the organizations where they get trained and where they get employable are in more of them in the automobile sector rather than in the aerospace sector. That is one point that I would like to make.
Thank you so much. And just not more than 26 or Praveen, the last event.
Thank you very much. In fact, I don't have to say much more because Aeroplanet is now seen as the fastest growing aerospace ecosystem. In fact, we are thankful for the larger tier 1, tier 2 presence developed by the DRDO labs. So we have an ecosystem which is fairly, for a long period, we have been doing zero decision engineering kind of thing. So for us to migrate into an aerospace ecosystem was quite quick. Thanks to Lockheed's beginning, Tata came in with a lot of joint ventures, Boeing's manufacturing facility, Safran has got 3-4 of them today. The largest MRO being announced here. It's all because the state government has accorded priority status to aerospace. For MRO also we have given industrial status, which is again something new because it's otherwise considered a service sector. For skilling, the state government is now upgrading all our ITIs and polytechnics into advanced training centers in partnership with Tata Technologies. For promotion, I think we have presented most of the aerospace events at global summits, and also we are having ecosystem partnership with countries like France, Italy, Spain, now Japan, and US and UK is also there. So I think there's a strong engagement with the industry, strong engagement with the MSMEs, and we have this policy of customized incentives. So that would be much more advantageous for a lot of companies to come in. So essentially, these are the things which probably kind of make Hyderabad a key investment destination. And
thank you so much for your now, if I may hand back to Piyush for his closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Urpil. What a session this was. Despite starting almost on time and spilling over by 23 minutes now, we still had steam for another hour maybe, which is very, very good. It shows that what a dynamic set of people we have and what a dynamic sector we are trying to address. There's definitely takeaways from this session. I was making notes despite my constant phone calls and everything. But it was really engaging, and I had a lot of takeaways. I'm sure I have covered most of the points If we have missed some, we will be happy to hear from you later. The first point, of course, is the capital requirement in the sector is huge, and for that several solutions have come. One of them is associated with the cluster development. In fact, common facility center and the cluster development are intertwined in a way because cluster development scheme, MSME scheme was mentioned, has both the components. So before we actually send a formal proposal, when I say we, I mean the people here in this August gathering, when they send a proposal to the government, please weigh in the scheme of Ministry of MSME that is already in existence on the cluster development. Because when we develop a cluster exclusively for one particular sector, it might not really be viable. It is actually in the interest of industry that you buy onto an existing cluster of a wider horizon like the MSME cluster and put in a unit there, because the experience is that if you try to set up a park or a cluster exclusive for one subsector, since aviation is ultimately a subsector of industry, it might remain unoccupied. Most of the parks in this country are almost 25% occupied, remaining are not occupied. So it is not the best way of using the resources, but we are open. If you think there is enough traction for having a cluster scheme exclusively for aviation, we are game for that. The second most important and recurrent theme that we heard today is, I was talking about the takeaways. The sector grows only in ecosystem from tier 1 to tier 3, which is a very, very valid point. There are skill gaps, and I am happy to see that many of the people are here, including HAL and others, are actually contributing to bridging that gap, which is a good thing. The engine ecosystem is the most complex in terms of tolerance, and machining is of course well known, and we need to work on that. But there would be areas that need to be covered, and we will look forward to your inputs on how do we bridge those gaps. The good thing is that you have mentioned that there are various success stories here. What is important for these success stories to actually happen is that the people who are putting in their money should have the vision for the future. Without that, obviously, it's non-beginner. India's strength in aerospace and machining is documented. The companies like BBC and Vidhani, who were mentioned to provide the raw material requirements for the country, is a good development. There was a recommendation regarding ease of doing business for SCOVET clearances. I'm told that the time taken is extraordinarily long. If that is really the case, it should not be a case-to-case thing. It should be a broader industry statement that we are making. If some industry association, maybe FICCI or AIA or anybody else, can document that, give us specific examples, we will be happy to take it forward. The other points, of course, testing facilities need to be established. This is again something that would need to be looked into from granularity, whether the testing facility has to be in the existing pockets of excellence like Hyderabad, or it could be a countrywide thing, and you think that an individual industry can actually go there and get their product tested, because it's a one-off exercise. You don't have to have it present at the site or closer to the site. Please give us the granular inputs on this. Policy certainty regarding BIS requirement is a very, very important point that came up. Steel was given as an example. I am aware of the case, but to the best of my knowledge, the steel issue has been resolved. The steel issue has been resolved, but aluminium issue, there's been no formal communication to us. If a formal communication is made, preferably through an industry association, we will of course be obliged to take it forward. Regarding the export incentives, both team-led sport benefit should be brought back, as well as having an export incentive scheme. It's a good idea, but again, we do not really know who are the potential beneficiaries in this. If the beneficiaries are of a substantial number, the critical number should not be one beneficiary. We should obviously have an industry-wide requirement for this. That's a good thing. We will take it to fruition. The raw material and the composite material, the carbon fiber, the VGF scheme was mentioned. Now, this was in addition to the PLI scheme that was being spoken about. Now, VGF, again, what would be the VGF requirement for it? Whether there is a study that has been done that would actually justify the VGF of a particular percentage that we are going to put forward. We can decide on a time frame by which the industry can revert to us, and all the inputs can be given to us. I suggest that even after this particular session, while you're having lunch and maybe in the evening when you're having dinner or whatever you prefer to have in the evening, please do spare some time and decide whether it is a good idea to have subgroups within this group. And then proposals can be sent to us. But finally, I think I should not be a barrier between you and the lunch. You have been working very hard this morning. Thank you very much for the time. My compliments to Jolie for having conducted this session so very well. And to all of you for being such a wonderful panelists. A big round of applause for all of you gentlemen. Thank you very much.